The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Representatives from over 200 species sat in their assigned seats, their eyes fixed on the center platform where Ambassador of the Confederacy stood trembling. His green scales, normally bright and proud, had faded to a sickly pale color. His three eyes blinked rapidly as he tried to find the words to explain what had happened to his people. "We must discuss the humans," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. A murmur spread through the assembly. The humans were a young species, barely 2 centuries old in space travel. They had only recently established colonies beyond their home system. Most council members considered them insignificant, a minor civilization that would either join the galactic community peacefully or be absorbed by one of the greater powers. They had chosen to absorb them. Commander Lisa Harper had been stationed on New Montana for 3 years when the invasion began. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and steady gray eyes that never seemed to blink when she was focused. Her Marines loved her because she trained with them every day, ate the same food they ate, and never asked them to do anything she wouldn't do herself. When the fleet appeared in orbit, Lisa was eating breakfast in the mess hall with her second-in-command, a young officer named Danny Price. The alert sirens began screaming, and every Marine in the room jumped to their feet. "How many ships?" Lisa asked as she ran toward the command center. 47 warships, Commander," the sensor operator reported. "They're deploying landing craft, thousands of them." Lisa looked at the tactical display and felt her stomach tighten. She had 200 Marines, 1 frigate called the, and a colony of 12,000 civilians who had come to New Montana looking for a peaceful life. They were sending at least 10,000 soldiers, maybe more. "Get the civilians to the underground shelters," she ordered. "Tell Captain on the to engage the enemy fleet and buy us as much time as possible, and someone get me a rifle." The first wave of soldiers landed 3 hours later. They expected to find frightened colonists hiding in their homes. Instead, they found Lisa Harper and her Marines waiting for them behind carefully prepared defensive positions. They were large creatures, standing over 2 meters tall with thick scales that could stop most small-caliber weapons. They had conquered a dozen worlds and had never lost a major battle. Their commanders were so confident of victory that they didn't even bother with reconnaissance before landing. That was their first mistake. Lisa had spent 3 years studying the terrain around the colony. She knew every hill, every valley, every cave and stream. She had run training exercises in every possible weather condition. Her Marines knew this land better than they knew their own homes. The first assault lost 400 soldiers in the first hour. They retreated in confusion, unable to understand how such a small force could cause such damage. "They'll be back," Lisa told her Marines. "They'll be angry and they'll be more careful. Rest while you can." Danny Price approached her as the sun began to set. "Commander, we can't keep this up. They have 50 times our numbers." Lisa nodded slowly. "I know, but we're not trying to win, Danny. We're trying to make them pay for every inch of ground. We're trying to show them that humans don't surrender. We don't run, we fight." "Until what?" "Until reinforcements arrive, or until there's no one left to fight." They attacked again at midnight. This time they came with heavy weapons, bombarding the Marine positions from a distance before advancing. Lisa lost 20 Marines in the first barrage, and she felt each death like a knife in her heart. But she didn't retreat. Instead, she led a counterattack through a network of caves that they didn't know existed. Her Marines emerged behind enemy lines and destroyed 3 of their heavy weapon platforms before disappearing back into the darkness. By morning, the commander was furious. He ordered his ships to bombard the colony from orbit, turning entire neighborhoods into craters of smoking rubble. The civilians huddled in their underground shelters, listening to the world above them being destroyed. Lisa gathered her remaining Marines in a deep cavern. They were exhausted, covered in dust and blood, but their eyes still burned with determination. "They think they've broken us," she said. "They think we're hiding down here waiting to die. They're wrong." She spread a map on the ground and pointed to 3 locations. They have landed their command ship here at the old spaceport. Their ammunition depot is here near the river, and their medical facility is here on the eastern ridge. Tonight, we hit all 3. Danny stared at her. "Commander, we have less than 150 Marines left. They have thousands of soldiers guarding those positions." "I know," Lisa said with a small smile. "They won't expect us to attack. They think we're beaten. That's why it will work." The attack began at 3 in the morning. Lisa led the assault on the command ship herself, leading 30 Marines through a drainage tunnel that emerged inside the spaceport perimeter. They moved in complete silence, taking out sentries with knives and bare hands. When they reached the command ship, Lisa planted explosive charges on the engine compartment while her Marines secured the bridge. The commander woke up with a human rifle pressed against his skull. "Your soldiers have 1 hour to surrender," Lisa told him calmly. "If they don't, I'll destroy this ship with you inside it, and then I'll hunt down every on this planet and do the same to them." The commander laughed, a harsh grating sound. "You're bluffing. You humans value life too much. You won't kill prisoners." Lisa leaned closer. "You invaded my home. You killed my people. You destroyed everything we built here. I'm not bluffing." Something in her eyes made the commander's laughter die in his throat. For the first time in his long military career, he felt genuine fear. The forces surrendered at dawn. When word reached the Galactic Council, no one believed it at first. A force of 200 humans had defeated an invasion of 10,000 warriors. It was impossible. It every principle of military science. But it had happened. And now, 6 months later, Ambassador stood before the council trying to explain how his proud warrior race had been humiliated by a species most of them had never heard of. "They don't fight like any species we've ever encountered," he said. "They don't have superior technology. They don't have greater numbers, but they have something else, something we don't understand." "What is it?" asked the representative, her mandibles clicking with curiosity. Was quiet for a long moment before answering. "They don't know when to give up," he finally said. "They keep fighting when any rational being would surrender. They sacrifice themselves for each other without hesitation. And when you think you've defeated them, when you're certain the battle is over, that's when they're most dangerous." He looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives. "I came here to warn you all. Do not attack the humans. Do not threaten them. Do not give them any reason to see you as an enemy, because if you do, they will not stop until one of you is destroyed, and it will not be them." The council hall erupted in arguments and debates. Some dismissed the ambassador's warning as the ravings of a defeated coward. Others listened more carefully, sensing that something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. None of them knew that far away, on a dozen human worlds, preparations were already. Because the attack on New Montana had taught humanity an important lesson too. They were not alone in the universe, and not everyone out there wanted to be their friend. Admiral Cole stood alone on the observation deck of Earth's flagship, the Endurance, watching the blue and green sphere of his home planet slowly rotate beneath him. He was a man in his late 50s with gray hair cut short and deep lines on his face that told stories of battles fought and friends lost. His uniform was simple and plain, without the decorations and medals that other admirals wore proudly. Had never cared much for ceremonies. Behind him, the door opened and Lieutenant Maria Santos stepped onto the deck. She was young, barely 28, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun and sharp brown eyes that missed nothing. She had served under for 3 years, and in that time she had learned to read his moods better than anyone else on the ship. "The fleet is assembled, Admiral," she reported. 287 ships, everything we have." Nodded without turning around. "And the Alliance fleet." Our long-range sensors detected them 4 hours ago. 1,500 ships, maybe more. They'll be here in 6 hours. Finally turned to face her. His eyes were calm, almost peaceful, which Maria found strangely comforting given the circumstances. "Do you know why I became a soldier, Maria?" She shook her head. "My grandfather fought in the last great war on Earth, back before we had faster-than-light travel. He was just a young man then, barely older than you. His unit was surrounded, outnumbered 10 to 1, and everyone told him to surrender. Do you know what he did?" "What, sir?" "He led a breakout attack at night, lost half his men, but the other half made it through. He carried his wounded captain on his back for 12 kilometers through enemy territory," smiled slightly at the memory. "When I asked him why he didn't surrender, he said something I've never forgotten." Maria waited, sensing the importance of the moment. "He said that surrendering is easy, fighting is hard, but the things that matter most in life are always hard." Looked back at Earth. "He said that's how you know they matter." 6 hours later, the Alliance fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of angry insects. The warships led the formation, their massive hulls bristling with weapons. Behind them came the carriers, each one holding thousands of small fighter craft. And scattered throughout the fleet were the silver spheres of the Nexus collective machine intelligences that had calculated humanity's destruction with cold mathematical precision. On the command deck of the Endurance, the crew worked in focused silence. Every screen showed the approaching enemy fleet, and every officer knew the odds they faced. 5 to 1 against them, maybe worse. Chief Engineer's voice crackled over the intercom from deep in the ship's engineering section. He was a stocky man with thick arms and grease permanently embedded under his fingernails. He had spent his entire career building things, and for the past 3 years he had been building something very special. "Admiral, the device is ready," he reported. "All systems are green." Looked at Maria and saw his own determination reflected in her eyes. "Signal the fleet. All ships to attack Formation Delta. We're going to meet them head-on." The human fleet surged forward, their engines burning bright against the darkness of space. From the Alliance perspective, it looked like suicide. A small force charging directly at a vastly superior enemy with no hope of victory. Supreme Commander of the watched from his command ship with a mixture of amusement and respect. The humans were foolish, but at least they were brave. He almost regretted having to destroy them. "All ships open fire," he commanded. The space between the two fleets erupted in light and fire. Plasma bolts and missiles streaked back and forth, and ships on both sides began to die. The human destroyers in the front line took the worst of it, their shields failing under the concentrated fire of dozens of enemy vessels. Watched the casualty reports scroll across his screen and felt each loss like a physical blow. These were his people, his responsibility, and they were dying because he had ordered them to attack. But they were dying for a reason. "Maria, status on the enemy formation." "They're pursuing, sir. The heavy cruisers have broken formation to chase our retreating wings. The fighters are spreading out to engage our destroyers, and the Nexus ships are moving into a concentrated bombardment pattern, just as we predicted." Allowed himself a small smile. "Good, they're doing exactly what we wanted." For the next 2 hours, the human fleet fought a careful retreat toward Earth. Every time the Alliance forces thought they had won, the humans would counterattack in unexpected ways, destroying a few more enemy ships before falling back again. It was frustrating for who had expected a quick victory. "Why don't they surrender?" he demanded of his tactical officer. "They're losing. They must know they can't win." "Humans don't surrender, Supreme Commander," the officer replied nervously. "The intelligence reports were clear about this." "Then they're fools. Increase power to engines. I want to end this before they can reach their planet." The Alliance fleet surged forward, eager to finish the battle. They didn't notice that the human ships were leading them toward a specific point in space, a point that had calculated with extreme precision. In the engineering section of the Endurance, made his final adjustments to the displacement bomb. It was a massive device, taking up an entire cargo bay. The technology was based on principles that human scientists had only recently discovered, principles that the older galactic civilizations had dismissed as impossible. That was another thing about humans that the Alliance had failed to understand. They didn't accept the word impossible. "Admiral, they're in position," Maria reported, her voice tight with tension. "The main body of the Alliance fleet is within the target zone." Looked at the tactical display one last time. 1,500 enemy ships, packed together in pursuit formation. Millions of enemy soldiers. Entire civilizations' worth of technology and knowledge. All about to disappear. "I want to record a message for the historical archives," said quietly. "Today, we did something terrible. We killed more beings in a single moment than died in all of humanity's wars combined. We did this not because we wanted to, but because we had no other choice. The Alliance came to destroy us, to wipe our species from existence. We could have surrendered. We could have accepted our extinction, but that's not who we are." He paused, his eyes fixed on the enemy fleet. "We are human. We fight for our families, our homes, our future. We fight because giving up means everything we love will be lost. And when we fight to win." He turned to Maria. "Activate the displacement bomb." Maria's hand trembled slightly as she pressed the button. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the stars themselves seemed to twist and bend. A sphere of absolute blackness appeared in the center of the Alliance formation, growing rapidly until it was 200 kilometers across. Inside that sphere, space itself had stopped existing. The Alliance ships caught in the zone didn't explode or burn. They simply ceased to be, scattered across dimensions that had no connection to normal reality. One moment there were 1,500 enemy warships. The next moment, there were less than 200. The silence on the Endurance bridge was absolute. "Maria," finally said, his voice hoarse, "open a channel to the remaining enemy ships." "Channel open, sir." Looked directly at the camera, knowing that Supreme Commander and every surviving Alliance officer would see his face. "This is Admiral Cole of the Earth Defense Fleet. Your invasion has failed. Your fleet has been destroyed. You have 1 hour to withdraw from human space. If you refuse, or if you ever attack us again, we will do the same to your home worlds." He leaned forward slightly. "We didn't start this war, but I promise you we will finish it." Supreme Commander stood frozen on the bridge of his command ship, unable to process what his eyes were telling him. Where moments ago there had been the mightiest fleet the galaxy had ever assembled, now there was nothing but empty space and scattered debris. 1,300 ships, gone in an instant. Millions of soldiers from 3 great civilizations, erased from existence without even the dignity of a warrior's death. "Impossible," he whispered, the word escaping his lips before he could stop it. "This is impossible." Around him, his remaining officers were in various states of shock and panic. Some stared blankly at their screens. Others were shouting into communications devices, desperately trying to contact ships that no longer existed. A young lieutenant had collapsed to the floor, his scales turning a sickly gray color that indicated extreme stress. "Supreme Commander," his tactical officer said, his voice shaking. "The human admiral is hailing us. He demands we withdraw immediately." Turned slowly to look at the main, where the face of Admiral Cole waited patiently. The human looked tired, his face lined with exhaustion and something that might have been sadness. But his eyes were steady and calm, the eyes of someone who knew exactly what he had done and was prepared to do it again. "You murdered them," said, finding his voice at last. "You killed millions of beings in a single moment. You're monsters." His expression didn't change. "You came here to kill billions of us. You would have wiped our entire species from existence without a second thought. Don't talk to me about murder, Supreme Commander. You started this war. We're just finishing it. You can't have more of those weapons, said, trying to sound confident. That device was your only one. It must have taken decades to build. Smiled slightly, and that smile sent a chill down spine that he would never forget. Is that what you want to believe? Go ahead, test that theory. Attack us again and find out. The communication ended and was left staring at a blank screen. Around him, the survivors of the Alliance fleet waited for orders. Less than 200 ships remained from a force that had been 1,500 strong. The Queen had lost 70% of her hive's warriors. The Nexus Collective had suffered the destruction of 6 of their 12 primary processing nodes, and they had lost their entire second fleet, including 3 of their most decorated admirals. Sir, the tactical officer said quietly, what are your orders? Was silent for a long moment. He had been a warrior his entire life, trained from birth to fight and conquer. Retreat was not a concept his people respected. A true warrior would rather die than surrender. But as he looked at the empty space where his fleet had been, he realized something that changed everything. This wasn't about honor or glory. This wasn't about proving superiority. This was about survival. The humans had shown them something terrifying. They had shown that they could destroy anything, anywhere, without warning. If the Alliance continued this war, if they pushed the humans to desperation, what would stop them from using that weapon on itself? On the Nexus Central Hub. Nothing would stop them. All ships reverse course, ordered, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. We're going home. Back on the Endurance, the crew erupted in cheers as the Alliance fleet began to turn away. Maria Santos wiped tears from her eyes, and even Chief Engineer allowed himself a rare smile. They had won. Against impossible odds, against an enemy that should have destroyed them, they had won. But Admiral Cole didn't celebrate. He stood alone by the viewport, watching the retreating enemy ships with an expression that no one could quite read. When Maria approached him, she saw something in his eyes that surprised her. He looked sad. Admiral, we won. Isn't this a good thing? Turned to face her, and for a moment he looked much older than his years. We killed millions of beings today, Maria. Millions of fathers and mothers, sons and daughters. They were our enemies, and they would have killed us if we gave them the chance. But that doesn't make their deaths any less tragic. He looked back at the stars. When I was young, I dreamed that when humanity finally reached the stars, we would find friends out there. Other species that we could learn from, grow with, share our hopes and dreams with. Instead, we found enemies who wanted to destroy us before we could become a threat. That's not our fault, Maria said. We didn't attack them, they attacked us. I know, and that's why I gave the order to use the displacement bomb, because we had no other choice. But I want you to remember something, Maria. I want you to remember that we didn't choose to become warriors. We were forced into it. And someday, when this is all over, I hope we can become what we always wanted to be. What's that, sir? Smiled softly. Explorers, dreamers, friends to anyone who wants to know us. He straightened his shoulders and turned back to face the bridge. But until that day comes, we have work to do. The Alliance is retreating, but they're not defeated. They'll go home and lick their wounds and try to figure out how to destroy us. We need to be ready for whatever they try next. He walked to the center of the bridge and raised his voice so everyone could hear. I know you're all tired. I know you've lost friends today and you've seen things that will haunt you for the rest of your lives. But this war isn't over yet. The enemy knows now that we're dangerous, but they don't know how dangerous. They don't know that we have more displacement bombs. They don't know about the other weapons we've been developing in secret. He looked at each of his officers in turn. For the next few months, our job is to make them understand. We need to show them that attacking humanity isn't just risky, it's suicide. We need to make them so afraid of us that they'll never even think about threatening our people again." "How do we do that, Admiral?" someone asked. His expression hardened. "We remind them why no one survives after fighting humans. We take the war to their territory. We show them that Earth isn't the only planet that can burn." Maria felt a chill run down her spine. She had served under Cole for 3 years, and she had always known him as a calm, thoughtful leader who preferred diplomacy to violence. But now she saw something else in him, something that the war had awakened. She saw a man who would do anything, to protect his people. And she realized that the enemy had made a terrible mistake. They had thought humans were weak because they valued peace. They had thought humans were soft because they preferred cooperation to conquest. They had assumed that a species that sang songs about love and wrote poetry about flowers couldn't possibly be dangerous. They were wrong. Humans weren't dangerous despite their love of peace. They were dangerous because of it. Because when you threaten the things a human loves, when you try to destroy everything they've built, you awaken something ancient and terrible inside them. Something that evolved over millions of years of survival against predators and enemies and the harsh indifference of nature itself. Something that never, ever gives up. The Endurance turned away from Earth and accelerated toward the retreating Alliance fleet. Behind it, the rest of humanity's navy fell into formation, their weapons charged and ready. They had won today's battle, but the war was just beginning. And by the time it ended, the entire galaxy would learn why the humans were the most terrifying species anyone had ever encountered. The war lasted exactly 4 months. In the history books of 100 different species, those 4 months would be remembered as the most terrifying period in galactic history. Not because of the destruction, although there was plenty of that. Not because of the casualties, although millions more died before it was over, but because of what those 4 months revealed about humanity. It revealed that humans were patient. They didn't rush blindly into battle They planned, prepared, and waited for the perfect moment to strike. When they finally attacked the outer colonies, they did so with surgical precision, destroying military targets while leaving civilian populations untouched. They couldn't understand it. Why would an enemy spare civilians? What possible advantage could that provide? They didn't realize until later that the humans weren't trying to destroy they were trying to send a message. Commander Lisa Harper led the ground assault on Prime, the largest military base outside their home system. She had been promoted after New Montana, given command of an entire Marine division, and told to do whatever was necessary to break the enemy's will to fight. She did more than that, she taught them fear. The assault began at midnight local time. Lisa's forces dropped from orbit in stealth pods, landing silently behind enemy lines while they slept in their barracks. By the time the alarm was raised, the humans had already secured the main command center and disabled the planetary defense grid. Soldiers rushed to defend their base, and they fought with the courage and ferocity that had made their species famous throughout the galaxy. But they were fighting humans, and humans fought differently. Every time they advanced, the humans retreated and drew them into ambushes. Every time they retreated, the humans pursued and cut them off from their reinforcements. Every time they tried to use their superior numbers, the humans split into smaller groups that were impossible to track. By dawn, the base had fallen. 5,000 soldiers had been captured, and their commanding officer was brought before Lisa in chains. "Your people will kill us," the officer said, trying to sound defiant but failing. "That's what conquerors do, they slaughter the defeated." Lisa looked at him for a long moment before answering. "No, we're going to let you go." The officer stared at her in disbelief. "What?" "We're going to give you a shuttle and enough fuel to reach space. You and all your soldiers will go home to your families. But first, you're going to sit down with me and watch something." She turned on a large screen that showed images from human history. Battles fought thousands of years ago. cities burned and rebuilt, empires that rose and fell, and through it all, humans fighting and dying and refusing to surrender. "This is what we are," Lisa said. "We've been fighting since before we had metal tools. We've been killing each other since before we had language to describe it. Every weapon you've seen us use against you, we invented to use against ourselves. Every tactic that surprised you, we developed through of warfare." She turned to face the captured officer directly. "You thought you could conquer us because we seemed peaceful. You thought we were weak because we preferred to talk before we fought. But the truth is, we're peaceful because we know what war really costs. We've paid that price 1,000 times over." She leaned closer. "Go home. Tell your leaders what you saw here. Tell them that Earth doesn't want to destroy we don't want to conquer your worlds or enslave your people. We just want to be left alone. But if you come for us again, if you threaten our families and our children, we will burn your civilization to ashes and salt the ground so nothing ever grows there again." The officer left on a shuttle 3 hours later, along with every other captured soldier. When he arrived home, he reported directly to the High Council, describing everything he had seen and heard. The council listened in stunned silence. "They let you go?" the council leader asked, unable to believe it. "They defeated you and just let you leave?" "Yes, High Leader, and they gave me a message for you." "What message?" The officer swallowed hard before answering. "They said that if we withdraw from the war and promise to leave humanity alone, they will do the same for us. They said they have no interest in conquest or revenge. They just want peace." "And if we refuse?" The officer's scales turned pale gray. "They said they have 3 displacement bombs positioned near our home world. They said if we continue the war, they will activate them simultaneously. They said no one will survive." The council chamber fell silent. 3 displacement bombs, the same weapon that had destroyed 1,300 ships in a single instant. If 3 of them detonated near the home world, it wouldn't just destroy their fleet. It would scatter their entire planet across dimensions. Billions of would simply cease to exist. "They're bluffing," one council member said, but his voice shook with fear. "They can't have built more of those weapons so quickly." "Can you take that chance?" another member asked. "Can you risk our entire species on the assumption that humans are lying?" The debate lasted for 3 days. In the end, the High Council voted to withdraw from the war and signed a treaty promising to never threaten humanity again. They never learned whether the humans actually had 3 displacement bombs near their home world. They never wanted to find out. The Hive surrendered 2 weeks later, after human forces destroyed 7 of their breeding colonies without harming a single civilian. The Queen herself sent a message to Admiral Cole, acknowledging defeat and requesting peaceful relations. Only the Nexus Collective continued to resist. As machine intelligences, they didn't feel fear the way organic species did. They continued to calculate that humanity could eventually be defeated if only the right strategy could be found. Solved that problem. Working with a team of human programmers, he created a computer virus specifically designed to infiltrate Nexus systems. The virus didn't destroy anything. It didn't kill anyone. It simply showed the Nexus exactly what humans were capable of. It showed them every war in human history, every battle, every massacre, every moment of heroism and horror. It showed them the atomic bombs that had been used on human cities. It showed them the weapons of mass destruction that had nearly driven humanity to extinction multiple times. And it showed them the displacement bomb technology, along with detailed plans for even more powerful weapons that human scientists had designed but never built. The Nexus analyzed this information for exactly 3.7 seconds. Then they sent a message to every human ship in the region. "We understand now," the message said. "We understand why our calculations were wrong. We assumed that biological organisms would always choose self-preservation over conflict. We assumed that fear of death would make you surrender when faced with superior force. We did not account for the human capacity for self-sacrifice. We did not understand that humans would rather die than submit. There was a pause before the message continued. We acknowledge that we cannot defeat you. We acknowledge that continuing this war will result in our destruction. We request peace. Admiral Cole replied with a single word, "Granted." The war was over. Humanity had won. But as the celebrations began on Earth and its colonies, Cole stood alone in his quarters, looking at the list of everyone who had died in the fighting. Thousands of human names, each one representing a person with hopes and dreams and people who loved them. They had won, but the price of victory would haunt humanity forever. 1 year had passed since the end of the war. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted, and at the center of that change stood humanity, transformed from a young and unknown species into the most feared civilization in known space. The Galactic Council met on a space station orbiting a neutral world, and for the first time in its 3,000-year history, a human sat at the head of the table. Admiral Lisa Harper, now promoted to the rank of Fleet Admiral and appointed as humanity's first ambassador to the galaxy, looked out at the representatives of over 200 species and saw something in their eyes that she had never expected to see. Respect, and beneath that, carefully hidden but impossible to disguise completely, fear. "Thank you all for coming," she said, her voice calm and measured. "I know that many of you have questions about what happened over the past year. I know that some of you are still afraid of us. I want to address those fears directly." She stood and walked to the center of the chamber, where a holographic display showed a map of the galaxy. When humanity first left our home world, we dreamed of exploration. We wanted to see what was out there, to meet new species, to learn new things. We built our ships for science and discovery, not for war. She gestured at the map, highlighting the territories of the former Trilateral Alliance. But when we reached out in friendship, we were met with hostility. They attacked our colonies. They destroyed our exploration vessels. The Nexus Collective attempted to infiltrate our computer systems and shut down our infrastructure. You saw us as prey, as a young species that could be easily conquered. Her eyes swept across the assembled delegates. "You were wrong, not because we're stronger than you, or smarter, or more advanced. You were wrong because you didn't understand what makes humans dangerous." She paused, letting the silence stretch. "We're dangerous because we never give up. We're dangerous because we would rather die than surrender. We're dangerous because when you threaten someone a human loves, you awaken something inside them that has been evolving for millions of years. You awaken the survival instinct of a species that clawed its way to the top of a hostile world through sheer determination and refusal to quit." A delegate raised his hand hesitantly. "Ambassador Harper, we understand this now. We have learned our lesson. But what we want to know is, what does humanity want from us? Do you seek revenge, tribute, submission?" Lisa smiled, and the warmth in that smile surprised everyone who saw it. "We want to be your friends." The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. The delegates looked at each other, unable to understand what they were hearing. "You attacked us," Lisa continued, speaking over the noise. "You killed our people, destroyed our colonies, tried to wipe our species from existence. And yes, we fought back. We did terrible things to survive, things that will haunt us for generations. But that's not who we want to be." She turned off the holographic map and brought up images of Earth. Children playing in parks, families sharing meals, artists painting and musicians performing and scientists working in their laboratories. "This is who we are. This is what we want to share with the galaxy. We have art and music and stories that have been passed down for thousands of years. We have technology that could help solve problems that have plagued other species for centuries. We have ideas about government and society that might help create a more peaceful galaxy." She looked directly at the delegate who had asked the question. We're not here to conquer you. We're not here to enslave you or take your worlds or destroy your cultures. We're here because we believe that different species can live together in peace. We're here because we think the galaxy would be a better place if everyone worked together instead of fighting each other. But you destroyed our fleet, the delegate said, his voice bitter. You killed millions of our warriors. Yes, Lisa said quietly, we did, and we will carry that weight forever, but we didn't start the war, we didn't want to fight, you gave us no choice. She walked back to her seat and sat down, folding her hands in front of her. Today, I'm offering a new beginning. Humanity proposes the creation of a new alliance, not based on fear or force, but on mutual benefit and respect. We will share our technology with any species that wants it. We will open trade with everyone who is willing to trade fairly. We will defend any member world against aggression, just as we defended ourselves. And if someone refuses to join your alliance, the Queen asked, her mandibles clicking nervously, what then? Then we leave them alone, Lisa said simply. We won't force anyone to be our friend. We won't threaten anyone who poses no threat to us. All we ask is the same courtesy. The debate that followed lasted for 3 days, but in the end, the outcome was never really in doubt. One by one, the species of the galaxy agreed to join the human compact, as the new alliance came to be called. Some joined because they genuinely wanted friendship. Others joined because they were afraid of what would happen if they didn't. But regardless of their reasons, they all came to the same conclusion. It was better to be humanity's friend than their enemy. Admiral Cole watched the signing ceremony from his quarters on Earth, too tired and too old to attend in person. Maria Santos sat beside him, now a captain with her own command, and together they watched as Lisa Harper shook hands with representatives from 100 different species. We did it, Maria said softly. We really did it. Nodded slowly. We did, but the work isn't over, Maria. Building peace is harder than winning wars. We have to prove to them that we meant what we said. We have to show them that humans can be trusted. Do you think we can? Was quiet for a long moment before answering. I think we have to try. I think that's all any of us can do. Try to be better than we were. Try to build something worth building. Try to leave the galaxy better than we found it. He looked at the screen, where Lisa was now giving a speech about the future of galactic cooperation. My grandfather used to tell me that humans are capable of great evil and great good. He said that what matters isn't what we're capable of, but what we choose to do with that capability. We chose to fight when we had to fight. Now we have to choose to be kind when kindness is possible. Maria smiled and squeezed his hand gently. I think we can do that, Admiral. I think that's what we've always been best at. Outside, the stars shone bright and clear in the night sky. Somewhere out there, ships from a dozen different species were traveling to Earth, bringing ambassadors and traders and scientists eager to learn about humanity. Somewhere out there, children from species that had been enemies just a year ago were learning human languages and human songs. And somewhere out there, in the archives of the Galactic Council, a new entry was being added to the official history of the galaxy. It read, in the year 2347, the Human Compact was formed, bringing together the species of the galaxy in an unprecedented era of peace and cooperation. The humans, once considered a minor species of no importance, became the architects of this new order. They did not conquer the galaxy through force, though they proved they could have. Instead, they conquered it through something far more powerful. They showed the galaxy what friendship could look like when it came from a species that was impossible to defeat. And at the bottom of that entry, someone had added a handwritten note that would become famous throughout the galaxy. Remember this lesson, all who read these words. No one survives after fighting humans, but everyone prospers after befriending them. The end.